heated. My name is Carol Carter. My company is GetThrival Training and Consulting, and I also have an online leadership program called Transform Your Leadership, which has been incredibly successful. It's been transforming people's lives, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Some of what we're covering today actually comes from that program. When stakes are high, temperatures run hot, the people, they lose their composure, and things are said that you just kind of wish you could reel back and redo, and you wish you could erase those moments from everybody's mind, because the way that you react when you're hooked, when you're stressed, it's not you. It's not the way that you want to be remembered, and it ruins your credibility. It takes out the influence that you could have on people in the future. And a lot of people in the office will keep to their corners. They will mind their own business because they do not want to get involved in these conversations. Every single person in your office, every person that you come in contact with has their own hot button. You don't know what that hot button is until you step on it. And so it's almost like you are surrounded by landmines, and you're not sure that any step you take isn't going to set one of them off. So I know I felt that when I first entered the workplace, and I thought, what's going on here? I had no skills to cope with this situation. So I tried to be reasonable and rational and talk things out. Not everybody wants to talk things out. In fact, most people really don't want to talk at all. They just want things to be the way they want them, and they want everyone else to stay out of their way. Okay. So typically, when you step on those hot buttons, people react, and you're not quite sure how to take that. They react in a way that's not normal to them, and possibly they start sending nasty emails. They do vindictive acts that just are completely irrational. And in your office, if you start seeing these behaviors happening, it may not be your responsibility to fix them. You may not be in that top position where it is up to you to make things happen. But I would argue if you have the ability to change things, it is your responsibility to do what you can. And there's certain things that you can do to make the conversation go smoothly, even if you're not the one in control. And what happens when these reactions take place is the domino effect. One person reacts, then everyone else, their temperature starts to rise. People get tense and anxious, and bad things start to happen. Then there are people in your office that thrive on this situation. They actually seem to enjoy the chaos, and they seek to cause it. I'm going to talk about those people briefly a little bit later in the call, but I just wanted to take that elephant out of the room. Yes, I know that there are people that are impossible to deal with. There are strategies that you can use. So there's two stories going on at the same time. There's what's really happening, and there's what we think is happening. And when reactions happen, we think it has something to do with us, something to do with what we said, something to do with how we're perceived. We start to worry, we go into our own internal area, and we try and fix things, and what we can't fix, we just back away from for the moment until we can figure it out. The thing is that your stories can push you in the wrong direction completely. When you back away, the people that thrive on chaos are rewarded. The things that need to get done aren't getting done. The problems that need to be resolved don't get resolved. And when people retreat to their corners, just know whatever story is running through your brain, each and every one of those people that was in the room has their own story that's running through their brain. You need to be anchored in the truth rather than in what you perceive is going on. That truth angel coming in to fix things and help you to do the right thing for the right reasons. If you're not anchored in the truth, you're going to get hooked on your own story, and then you're going to react in a way that you are not proud of. Here's what's really going on. You've got your command central. So your brain has various functions within it, and we would like to think that we're in control of those functions. In reality, we are not. There's certain hardwiring that we are born with, that we're gifted with. Sometimes it's a curse. And then beyond that, everything that happens to you, every single thing that's happened to you in your life, and your emotional reaction to that has been recorded. It's been noted by your amygdala. And this action, this reaction, amygdala puts them together, stuffs them in the hippocampus, and then when bad things happen, or when similar events start to happen, and all that information comes flooding in your brain, it first goes into that central command center. And your amygdala pulls out all that stuff from your hippocampus and says, okay, alert, 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 and you react. And the reaction that happens at that base level is the fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, fight, flight, or freeze is great if you are in the jungle and you're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger and you need to get out of the way really fast. And it is not so great if you are sitting in an office, because how logical is it to run away? How much benefit are you going to get from freezing and not doing anything? But how do we get over this? Your brain doesn't know the difference in danger between sitting in an office and having this response happen or being in the center of the jungle being attacked by a tiger. You have to tell it what to do. You have to be in control of what's going on here. The definition of pain, I talk about this a lot in my course, is the gap between what you want and what your reality is. And that pain can trigger that fight or flight or freeze response in you. And it seems completely illogical, but there it is. You are constantly controlled by this pain that you're feeling in the gap. Think about that. You're sitting in the boardroom and you have created this story. If this change goes through that they're talking about, my job is going to get more difficult. I will fail more often. My credibility will be ruined. My life will be more difficult. I'll have to work all this overtime. My family's going to be affected. On and on and on it goes. And inside, your anxiety is rising. The gap between your reality or the potential of what your reality is going to be should that change go through and what you really want is getting wider and wider. That pain is growing and growing, and you are about to shut your brain off and react. You are not going to be proud of the results. So it's up to you to manage that situation. Also, when somebody in the room goes off, say it's about a change that you feel is really important for the company. They've reacted that way that I was just talking about. They feel that it is going to threaten their way of life. They may not say that. They may have all these other arguments that they put in front, masking the fact that they are living in fear right now. This is a crucial moment for them. This is a critical conversation, and they must win. Stakes are high. They're reacting. You feel, no, this is important. We need to push this through. You react. You've got a chain reaction in your office, and one of two things are going to happen. Someone's going to make a decision, and somebody is going to lose. Or everyone's going to retreat into their corners and start their own little private war. You were designed to handle stress and trauma. I'll just quickly touch on this. I talk about this more in my course. But the information comes into your system through all of these receptors, and it comes up the brainstem. On the brainstem, it regulates your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing. It hits the limbic system. That fight-flight response happens. You have an action or a reaction at that point. If you don't get stuck, if that information doesn't get stuck in the limbic system, it will then go into your neocortex, where you have logic and you have reasoning and you can have a good conversation. So the challenge is to bypass everyone's limbic systems. Help keep them calm. Help keep level heads in the room so that everyone can use their logic and their reasoning, and we can get problems solved in a way that works. So, yeah, you want to keep that command central at bay, but you can't control everyone's command central. In fact, they can't control their command central. So we're going to talk about some strategies that you can put in place to help keep tempers down and help keep conversations cool and prevent this. And prevent this. So the finger pointing happens when reactions start happening and nobody wants to be in the firing line. That doesn't solve any problems. As soon as you see finger pointing, if the fingers are pointed at you, your natural reaction is to react. Get out of harm's way. Wait a minute, this isn't true. And stand up for yourself. Be assertive. Chances are you're being assertive about the wrong thing. So to deflect and point the fingers then at somebody else is just continuing this chain reaction that we talked about, getting more and more people hooked out of their neocortex and into their limbic system. So the first strategy is to make sure that the buck stops with you. You are not going to do the finger pointing. You are not going to do the reacting. You need to rise above all these reactions. You realize that you need to pull yourself out of that chain reaction and be a level head. And by being a level head, you will start a new chain reaction. The fact is, it's human nature to do nothing before we do something. And when tempers rise, people will tend to stall, to stop, to wait. And hopefully something will change, or the problem will just simply go away. And it doesn't. When people bottle up their anxiety and their fear and their stress, they are like ticking time bombs. That time bomb can go off anywhere at any time for any reason. When people explode in the office, it may not even be about the subject you're talking about. It may be about a relationship issue that they've had with somebody else in that room 2 months ago, and it's been brewing. So here you are in the office in the middle of all these landmines. Now, the typical approach to a difficult conversation is just to shut it down. Be aggressive. Make a decision. This is the way things are going to be. That's it. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Or possibly nobody wins. Because what you're dictating is going to be a compromise. And everybody's going to lose a piece. The second approach is that passive-aggressive approach, where you're trying to get other people to do what you want them to do, and the way that it's almost like correct. Their only logical decision is to go with your choice. And I'm sure that you know a few of those in your office. Every once in a while, I have to admit, I've been there. I have slipped into that mode of trying to manipulate the system through go-arounds, not being direct. And it does not work. You think you're avoiding conflict, but actually you're just prolonging the agony. Then there's the passive-aggressive, the passive approach. Or there's some people in the office that just want to keep the peace. If we can just keep the peace, everything will work out. And what that creates is a lose situation for them. Somebody's going to win, but it may not be the right person for the right reasons. You need to stop the conversation from getting heated. And when you do that, you will build trust among your team. An environment where trust is high is an environment where good decisions are going to be made all the time. Good decisions, the right decisions for the right reasons in the right way. And an amazing chain reaction happens when you build trust. When people know that you are going to do the right things for the right reasons, they will tell you what's really going on, not some story that they're putting out in front that they think that you'll accept more than the truth. More truth brings more trust. And when people are speaking the truth, it's almost like having a great big cauldron. So you've got this great big cauldron and everyone is putting water into that cauldron. A little bit from this person, a little bit from that person. They're speaking the truth. They're putting their ideas, they're putting their thoughts, their fears. Yeah, I'll cover that in a moment. They're putting all of their ideas into this pot. Now think about that. The more water you have in that pot, the better decisions you can make, because the greater the number of people are going to be served. If you were doing an opinion poll and you only gathered opinions from 5 people, it would be a pretty skewed opinion. You couldn't trust it. But when you do an opinion poll and you pull 10,000 people from all walks of life, from all corners, or in your office, if you pull all the employees and you get that information from different levels, from different perspectives, and these people that have different agendas and different things going on in their lives and different fears, then you will make decisions that will serve the majority, not just a decision that you think will serve the majority. You'll actually be basing your decisions on good information, solid information that other people can trust. The way that you do this is by saying what needs to be said. Be the voice of reason. These are tough skills. These are probably the toughest skills, not only in communication skills, but in leadership skills, assertiveness, confrontation, and challenging. And I go deeper into this in a lesson in the Transform Your Leadership course, where I actually get people to dive into these skills, try them out, and it's amazing to see the transformation that takes place. Aggressiveness. Assertiveness is actually coming from a very calm and grounded place, and it involves a lot of listening. Confrontation does not have to be adversarial. It does not have to be, it does not have to create conflict. Confrontation is telling the truth and not getting hooked on the lies. These may be lies that people are completely unaware that they're spreading. They're speaking from what they believe to be true, but you have to dive through all of the misconceptions. You have to get to the absolute truth. And then you have to hold that truth. You have to stand in that gap. And then challenging. Challenging is not pushing people. Challenging is actually focusing people on a greater vision. It's focusing them on what is possible and getting their brain, their imagination, to start playing with this idea of what's possible. They will expand that into things that you never even conceived of. You can have such a brilliant company when you challenge people to really reach for what is possible. They'll come up with ideas that will take your company to the next level. Saying what needs to be said is incredibly important. It is incredibly difficult to do. And I'm going to address this conversation right here in the chat area. But if you're speaking the truth and your managers don't want to hear it, then how do you build trust? Which brings me to what your responses were to the question that I asked. blood boil in difficult conversations. And the responses were mostly about not being heard, not being listened to. When your managers don't want to hear the truth, speaking louder or getting more anxious is not going to help your situation. And sometimes they just block you. They say, you know what, we're not going to talk about this. And they shut the conversation down. They aren't right. But there is not anything that you can do at that point. Once they say no, the conversation is finished. So I'll touch back on this. It's an important question. I'll touch back on this a little bit later. Here's your first strategy. In this situation, or any situation where the stakes are high and tempers are heating up, when a person feels fully heard and understood, he or she is open to what you have to say. We don't listen enough. And listening is different from being quiet and letting people have their say. Active listening is actually being interested in what someone else is saying. It's hard to do if they have a conflicting view, but until you fully understand where that conflicting view is coming from, what's behind it, what their backstory is, what their fears are, what's playing around in your head, you don't know what you're dealing with. So you may be attacking what is coming out of their mouth, whether you would out and out attack it or whether in your mind you're arguing with it. And you're arguing with the wrong thing. So if I believe that my life is going to be materially changed, if a change goes through, if I think that I'm going to be working mega overtime and I'm going to lose my summer, my family's going to suffer, it's going to create relationship problems, I've got enough going on, I don't need this, that's what you're arguing against. Now, how can you tell that person, this is what we're going to do, that's it? You need to actually address their backstory. You need to address their concerns about overtime. So if overtime is the concern, and that wraps into a whole pile of personal pain and agony, then address the overtime. Okay, we need to get that off the table first before we go forward. How much overtime? Maybe they can accept a little bit, but in the long run, they need to know when that pain is going to be eased so that they can tell their family, look, this is going to change by such and such a date. I have a promise. And even if the family goes, yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, that's what's going on at home. That's what you're fighting against. So you need to ask clarifying questions and listen. And then ask more clarifying questions and listen. You really need to build that trust. When that person trusts that you really get where they're coming from, then you have the floor. But until then, everything that comes out of your mouth that you say is going to be blocked by whatever story is running through your head that you're working against. Now, when you are dealing with a manager that has a story running through their head, they may just shut down the conversation. So especially when you're working for somebody that is having difficulty, that is making the conversation challenging, you especially need to keep that conversation going by active listening. So ask some questions, and they'll tell you. And then clarify, and clarify more. But don't say, here's the word to leave out of your conversation, but. Eliminate that. Strike that word out of your conversation. I use it, and I regret it. Every time I hear it coming out of my mouth, I think, oh, Carol, you know better. Eliminate that word, and your life will change. So ask, listen, and really listen. Open up. Really try and clarify what you don't understand, what you don't agree with. And don't ask leading questions. Ask open questions. People will gladly tell you what they feel and what they think when they're given the opportunity and when they don't feel that they're being judged. So you need to suspend, and I do this whole section on suspending your frame of reference, but you need to suspend what your agenda is, what your needs are, what lights you up, what makes you boil. And all of these triggers that you have, you need to go in the closet and you need to shut the door, and you need to be fully present for that person. Everybody's there with their own agendas, and there's some people that will hang on to their agenda, will never ever let it go. There are people that feel that they need to stomp on everyone else and win in order to survive. That's the mode that they're in. It has nothing to do with you. So here's the biggest key to making sure that those conversations don't boil over. Remember, it is never about you. So your story is saying, me, 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 me. You need to shut that down. There are greater things going on here. All these people have their own needs. They have their own fears. They have their own things going on. I need to understand what's really going on here, and then, only then, can we make a really good decision going forward. But there you are, locked in stress, thinking, what do? I don't understand what's going on here, and people are reacting. You're in the moment. What do you do in that moment where things are getting out of control, either with you or with other people in the room? First strategy, step back. If you can physically step back, then do it. So if you are at a boardroom table, it means pushing yourself back a little bit from the table on your seat. And breathe. And breathe from your diaphragm. So we'll just, if you want to put your hand on your diaphragm, which is just above, it's right at the base of your rib cage. So you put your hand on your diaphragm and breathe in. You should feel that your belly expand. So breathe in and breathe out. And when you breathe out, your belly should contract. We're not used to breathing that way because we all want to look good. But hear my voice. Do you hear how my voice just went down a notch? And it's much more easy to listen to a voice like this than a high-pitched, squeaky voice that's up in your chest and you're really anxious, and this is really important. So the first strategy is to step back and breathe. So not only will your voice become lower, slower, more calm, more listenable, but you will get oxygen to your brain that needs it the most. So your danger is that your brain is going to shut down and you're just going to start reacting. All of a sudden, your brain is infused with oxygen and it can operate at its full potential. So step back, breathe, and then get curious. Ask yourself questions. And these are the questions that you're going to ask. What is really going on here? What is most important here? And that's, remember, you're suspending your stuff. It's in the closet. What is most important here? Not what's important to me, but what's important here. What will matter 5 years from now? Here you are. You're all contributing into a pot. What happens in this moment will have rippling effects down the road. You think of, imagine being in the boardroom at Polaroid, and somebody comes in and says, this internet thing, you know what, I think it's a real threat, and I think that we really need to do something about it. And the CEO says, we've got all of our patents, we got those patents, we have a corner on the market, no one can touch us. There will always be Polaroid pictures. And what happened? So in that boardroom, somebody backed down and didn't make the right decision for the right reasons. And it affected the company greatly 5 years down the road. It's still affecting them today, and they're trying to reinvent themselves. I love this quote from Zig Ziglar. It's not what you've got, it's what you use that makes a difference. So hopefully I can just indulge your attention for a moment and talk to you about this course that I'm running. If you're listening to what I'm saying, and there's a lot of buts popping up in your brain. But this is what happens. But typically when I'm in this situation, I can't control this. But I've tried this and it doesn't work. This webinar, this 45-minute webinar, is too short to give you all the strategies that are going to work for you. And I'm focusing you on one of the ones from Transform Your Leadership. But there's a whole slew of them. So in Transform Your Leadership, it's an online course that has weekly lessons, and each lesson has a really engaging video. It's got a PDF download that has a challenge in it. You focus on just that one skill that we've unraveled, or there may be two skills linked together, and you take this challenge and you go out into your workplace or into your whatever situation you've got. You can use it at work, you can use it in your profit organization, and you work on that skill. You try it out. You get your feet wet. I never make it so that it's going to cause any harm to you by using the skill. You have some success with it, and on Friday, I give more information on a live webinar, much like this one, where I kind of round out the skill and I give you a chance to ask questions, find out more information. And then you have a quiz to hold you accountable to the learning, to make sure that you actually do understand the concept. And you would send me your challenge summary after you're finished with it. I would give you feedback. It's almost like having a one-on-one coach. I'm right there with you to help you along the way with your individual challenges and your individual situations without having to pay the really high fees for a coach. So here's what you would see further down the page on that, on the weekly challenge. You would have your PDF download, you'd have your weekly webinar, and you have your quiz. And then there's also a little talkback area where you can engage with other people that are taking the course. And you can use it on your smartphone. That's a very terrible picture of my smartphone, but there it is. I go on the landing page. It tells me how many points I've accumulated. It shows me little icons for what I've completed that make up those points. And if I get behind, I can always make it up at some further points. So that was one stress. What if I miss a week? What people have said from this course, 5 weeks into taking the course, I'd learned more than a friend of mine who was taking leadership courses through BCIT and paying way more money. We compared notes, and what he'd learned after 12 weeks was just a drop in the bucket compared to your course. And I appreciate that message from Joseph. I've had people tell me that they've taken courses from some very reputable universities, and by far this is the best course that they've taken. I didn't know what I'd stumbled on when I started creating it, but I have to stand by. A lot of work went into it, but I have to stand by the transformation that it creates, because the people who are doing the homework, they are having huge results. When I'm reading what they're writing, I am so happy for them. Their lives are transformed. Their careers are transformed. And I can't tell you enough that this, if you are in a position where you're feeling pain in your career, in your life, you're feeling that you're not being heard and you don't have the answers of how to be heard, then think about joining Transform Your Leadership. There's the web address, and you go there, you can take a look at the video, and then you can try out one of the videos from one of the challenges. There's a link there. And then don't look at the summer self-improvement adventure. That's what I called the version of the course that was launching over the summer. But this course is relaunching in September. September the 8th starts on a Monday. And I invite you all to consider adding that to your life, because it will save you a tremendous amount of time, energy, angst. It will help focus you in the right direction for the right reasons. Back to this person who thrives on chaos in your office and seems to create it. So every time there's an important decision to be made, they seem to just want to stir the pot, be the devil's advocate, Or they send little strategic emails just to get people locked in that fear mode where they're not sure, they feel a little bit threatened, maybe their position is threatened, they don't know exactly what to do, and they start reacting in weird ways. And that person just sits back, lets the chaos happen, and then gets their own way in the process. So do you have one of those in your office? Is that happening? Is it just me that's experienced that? I've heard it from, I used to do staffing at one point in my life. I was a staffing consultant, and I had person after person in my interviews who was telling me about the pain in their office, and very often they were dealing with somebody who liked to make people's lives miserable. There is no logical reason for this. And I'm just going to free you right now. The people that are doing this, they have problems. But they have problems that you can't solve. So what can you do? It's very likely that you are dealing with a narcissistic personality. And the narcissist is concerned with him or herself and to the detriment of others. So they really don't care what is going on with you, though they may act like they do when it serves their purpose. They don't care what is going to happen to the company years down the road. They only care about their position, their situation in life, their amusement. It's all about them, and they will protect their ego at all costs. If they perceive that you may be a threat either to their position, just because you are inspiring and engaging and honest, and you can actually make good things happen in the office, they may try to make your life miserable. And again, that strategy, stop, breathe, get curious, start asking questions. When you ask the narcissist questions, open-ended questions, not leading questions, but clarifying questions about what they're saying, they love to talk, absolutely love to share their opinions. And while they believe that they're manipulating the situation as they're saying whatever they want to say, they are actually opening up. It's amazing the transformation that you can achieve when you just start getting those narcissists talking in a one-on-one situation. Let them talk. Let them roll around in their grandiose ideas and actually get them out of their head and hear their own voice saying them. They will expose themselves for what they are, first of all. And if they don't catch it, anyone hearing this will catch it. And number two, when they get these ideas out of their head and actually physically out there, they will feel better about you, and they will start treating you better. Now, when they feel that you're supporting them, even though you're not, you're just letting them talk, they will want to throw good vibes your way. Never, ever align yourself with a narcissist. That is a recipe for disaster. So these people that are creating chaos in the office, it would do you well, especially if you're a manager, to pull them aside and have a one-on-one conversation, not to tell them what's not appropriate, but to start asking them open-ended questions and to get them talking. It's hard to do. Again, I talk about more of that in the course that I've got. So what I'm going to send you after this webinar is a link to the last Get Thrival newsletter. Some of you have never seen my Get Thrival newsletter. It has an article on narcissism. And when you click on that article, you will actually see a backlink to the two articles before it. You should start with part 1 of narcissism in the workplace. And that's how to identify one. Part 2 is what to avoid. Part 3 is what you can do. And that will help you with those really challenging people. Whether they're officially a narcissist or not, some of these strategies will work even with those who aren't. I will be sending you a checklist to follow when preparing for high-stakes conversation. It is information from Transform Your Leadership, but it's only the information that will pertain to getting you ready for these conversations. And I'll send you a link to this recording. And I just wanted to let you know that I have another free webinar on Tuesday, August the 12th on office politics, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you like this, sign up for that one. Get more people in your office signing up for it, because the more people that watch that webinar, the better conversations you're going to have and the fewer ugly office politics you're going to have to deal with. So back to what we've covered today. When the stakes are high, what your strategies are. First of all, stop. If you can, step back. Push back from that table. Take a physical step back. Breathe. Breathe from your diaphragm so your voice lowers. You get that oxygen to your brain. You can make good decisions and keep tempers from rising around you. Then be curious. Start asking questions. Listen. Actively listen. Ask clarifying questions. Get anchored in the truth, not hooked by stories. Your story. When you see other people being hooked by their own story, stop, breathe, be curious, ask them questions and listen to what they're saying. Get to the root, get to the truth, and focus on the truth. And then, only then, say what needs to be said. Because it's only when you get people hooked and fully present, feeling good, feeling that you have heard and understood them, it's only then that they will actually listen to what they need to hear. Hopefully this strategy helps you in your office. It's all about building leaders around you. Whether you're in a leadership position or not, you will always have the opportunity to lead others. And you first lead by example. When you transform your leadership, you transform your life. And not only your life, but the lives of others around you. I really believe in lifelong learning and focusing on what you can do, what the possibilities are. Because that's the only way that we make this place a better place to live, to work, and to play. And we are coming up on, it is 12:45 on the nose. And if you need to leave, by all means, you are welcome to exit the program. I am so happy that you showed up here. But if you want to stay and ask me questions, now's the time to throw them in the chat area. So I'm just going to go back to this question that's in the chat area from Deja. I hope that I pronounced that right. I probably have not. But if you're speaking the truth and your managers don't want to hear it, then how do you build trust? And you build it by managing you. You build it by giving them opportunities to speak and to keep asking clarifying questions. You build it by not getting hooked. You build it by being the best version of you that you can bring to work every day. And I did this speech about how the two things that you can do to make the workplace a better place to work, but that everybody can do. And one of those things was to leave bad leaders. And it is not an easy thing to do. It's not an advisable decision to make when you don't have something to go to. But the commitment that you make to yourself at that moment where you say, you know what, I don't think this is going to change because I never am heard. I am never understood. And this person is making bad decisions, right, left, and center. You have to then make the decision that every single day that you show up for work, you are going to be the best version of yourself in spite of all this. It's not that you have hope that things will change, because that false hope will just lead to disillusionment and bitterness and hurt. So you fully are aware of the situation. You don't expect to change it, but you know what? You can still manage yourself well every single day. By managing yourself well, you're establishing your value in the company. you will leave on a good note for the contributions you've made, for what you've given the company. Plus, when you're in the interview process, you will feel great about you. You will be completely confident in what you have to bring, not focusing on the reactions that you've had that are not you, because you're in pain every single day in that office situation. So yes, that's the long answer. The short answer, manage you. To be a lady rise above the nonsense, yes. Just difficult when you keep banging your head against the wall. Trust me, I'm trying to get out. Yes, I know. It is difficult. It feels like slavery. It feels like bondage. The truth is that you are never stuck. You may feel stuck. You may feel trapped by your circumstances. But I need. That keeps running through your head. But I can't. You can do anything you decide to do. You just have to be willing to suffer the consequences for your decisions. And if you leave a job and you don't have another job to go to, those consequences are going to be free time, but also a lack of funding. And you've got to ask yourself, okay, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you don't get a job right away. Can I live with that? And if you can't, well then obviously that's not the right decision to make. But yes, be your better self. That's the only thing you can do is manage yourself. You cannot push other people to be their higher selves. But they may see you and want to be like you. And that is the best form of leadership there is, leadership by example. So any other questions before we call it quits here? I'll be sending you all an email, and I encourage you all to be on Tuesday's webinar. We'll go into office politics. Oh, fun. And then at the very end of the month, I'm going to tackle narcissism on the webinar. So if that topic interests you, I'll be sending out the link for that at a future date. I haven't set up that webinar on the system yet. So thank you all for joining today, and hopefully you have a strategy now that you're going to put into place. Stop, step back, breathe, be curious, listen. And that will change that next situation where temperatures start to rise. Thank you so much. Have a really great weekend.